The depression is from the fear of becoming a mother because I don't have a great example of being a good mom. So I have fear after I deliver a baby, and I'm worried that I can't be a good mom.
I will start with you, Jamie. You are a content creator,
Yes.
and there are many people who watch you on social media. For you, what was the most defining moment in your life that really changed you?
Quite a few moments start from after I know God,
Okay.
and then my father passed away, and then I had to be independent, like on my own self, and then I started to know my husband.
Yep. And
And
your husband is
then,
here in this
yes, he's
place,
here.
right?
And then we started our influencer career as a content creator. And then I think the most biggest change is I became a mom. The moment in the labor room after she came out, immediately I know my life changed. Yeah.
Talk to us. How was motherhood journey?
At the start, I don't really accept like I became a mom.
Okay.
Although I agreed with my husband that we are aligned that we want to have a kid, but I haven't have the courage, like I haven't ready yet to have a baby.
What was the toughest moment?
I realized I am no longer a girl anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Mother?
because I used to be like a little girl, right? Like although I got married and I'm still a little girl with my husband, but after I became a mother, I have no longer any choice to choose my own life, the things I want to do and stuff. Yeah.
And you were very open on social media about the depression you went through. Can you share a little bit about that?
The depression is from the fear of becoming a mother because I don't have a great example of being a good mom. So I have fear after I deliver a baby, and I'm worried that I can't be a good mom and raise a child. I cannot imagine how can I raise a child.
For you in those darkest moments, how did God show up for you?
During the depression, I kind of just keep on locking myself in my own world. And then I don't want to see anyone. My outlook looks like I just don't look good. But inside of me, there's a big fight.
And is it hard that you have that big fight, yet after that you have to show up, put on a camera,
Yes.
and put out content?
It's very hard. So I decided not to upload any videos. I actually stopped my YouTube videos during that time after I gave birth. So it's a very, very, very tough time for me. And then one day I decided to just go out to like have some coffee with my own, and then I just listen to myself and maybe listen to some songs and have a little space. And then I started to realize I kind of rely on myself. Like I don't seek help. I don't ask for God's help, and I don't come to church. I just keep on like want to use my own strength during that tough time.
So was that how it led you to search for something more, something deeper?
I think it's not that fast. It's like a slowly procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you found God and
Yeah.
the community, and
Yeah.
here you are
Yeah,
sharing
just
your
keep
story.
on like focusing on something, the mission I had, the vision, and then the calling.
Can we give Jamie a big hand, right, to encourage her? It's not easy to share, life struggles. And I want to ask Datin Kathleen the next question because, a lot of us, we have many different role models in our life, right? Some of you, your role model is probably certain coaches or mentors or pastor or your dad or your mom. For me, Datin Kathleen is really a role model to me. So I really want to draw from her to help you guys get some insights. She's probably someone very busy. You had 7 kids, right? 7 kids, guys. In an era, in those days, I grew up in a family of 4 kids. I already felt I was a crowd, right? Because all my other friends, they were either 2 siblings, 3 siblings, but I had 4. And hearing your story, you had 7. You are group legal counsel of YTL, and then you run Alpha, and you're doing all these things. Now you have grandkids. Now you're a grandma. I really just want to know, how do you balance it all?
I think the question that you asked earlier of, what was the life-changing moment in motherhood? So maybe I'll start from there.
Yes.
Because that's the 7 children is normally when I say I have 7 children, that's where people go like, how do you manage that, right?
And still look slim and fit.
Oh, that one I have a good answer to. If you try having 7 children, I guarantee you'll be slim. That's a lot of investment in energy.
Agree.
I come from a family of 4 as well. My husband comes from a family of 7. When I got married and I had my first baby, the nanny said to me, "You have to have 5 children." And I said to her, "You're nuts, 5. 4 is good for me. I come from a family of 4. Anyway, we had 1, and then we had 2, and it was just amazing. I loved the babies. Then I had the 3rd one. I started feeling very guilty because I felt that I wasn't paying enough attention to my 3rd child. I didn't read to him as much. I didn't spend enough time as for the older 2. And then one day I came home from work, and there was my daughter, who was 3 years old, reading to my son, who was 1 year old. And I thought, God, you are so great. I don't have to do this alone. You have provided me with the tools, with a family, with children that can support each other. And so that was a big defining moment. And then I went on to have 7 children.
Amazing. Amazing.
And they have really been such a support to each other. I mean, people say, how do you cope with 7 children? My youngest son, who is somewhere here, he used to say to me, "Mom, I get it. You just have to get the first few right, and then the rest will follow." Because, his role models were his siblings. And if I, concentrated on making sure the older ones were doing well, the younger ones would just
follow.
Yeah. And the older ones would actually keep the younger ones in line. So I think, for the kids and for the family, and another trick I have, I know it's countercultural as well today, is we live with my parents-in-law. And my mother-in-law was amazing. I mean, she was a teacher before. So she took the burden of what happens at home away from me. So I could go to work, and I know everything is fine at home. She's very, very fierce, by the way. Everybody's scared of her, yeah. So the kids are scared of her. And those moments when she'll call me in the office in the middle of a meeting and say, "Your children have been so naughty." Okay, I'm so sorry. I have to go back to my meeting. I'm so sorry. So, I mean, that's how life was. It was very busy, but I had so much support all around me, my children, my in-laws. My husband says this as well. Every time we have something really tough, somehow God sends someone, and that someone, makes that burden lighter.
So the key is really building a supportive system around.
I think so, yes.
Because I believe the tension of work, family, people, ministry, church, kids, parents-in-law is pulling you at every direction, every moment. So having that support system. I have a question to ask. I think what people see, they see a confident, stable, secure person in you. Were there moments where you really have to overcome some of these struggles, some of these maybe lies that you tell yourself or negative thinking about yourself?
I think what I struggled with most was when I was asked to be the chair of Alpha Malaysia. Alpha Singapore had helped to start Alpha Malaysia. And when we met the chair of Alpha Singapore, he very quickly tried to pass the chair across to us. So he said to my husband, "You take it over." My husband says, No, you ask my wife. And at the time, I had never been involved in any ministry. I was brought up as a Catholic. I've always known faith in my life, but never being kind of part of a ministry. And suddenly this thing landed on my lap, and I tried to deflect it. And I remember I went for an Alpha conference in London, and I had to make up my mind. I said, "Okay, just give me some time, I'll see what God says to me about this." And on the last day of the conference, I was in the car. The national director of Singapore he just looked at me, and I knew what he was thinking, and he knew what I was thinking. We didn't say anything. And suddenly, from Capital Radio in London, it said, "There's no getting out of it." I have no idea why. Suddenly, this thing, there's no getting out of it. So he looked at me, and I said, "Okay." Anyway, the scariest thing was I just felt inadequate. I just felt that I couldn't do this. I remember my first board meeting, and they say, we always start with prayer. And I said, am I supposed to pray with all these people who are kind of long-serving ministry, well-known pastors? I really had to rely on God that this was my calling and my purpose, because it was difficult in the face of all these other experienced ministers and pastors, to do that job.
So from that experience to where you are today, how has God shown you who you are as a person? Did that change?
As I said earlier on, every time I have this uncertainty, God sends someone. So God sent a friend of ours. He's kind of went alongside that journey with me. And if I was hesitant, I said, "Jacob, will you pray?" And then he would pray. I think, if we are obedient, somehow God will give you the strength and the people around you to fulfill His purpose. I think it is just a question of walking in His purpose. So I don't think I found someone different in me, but I found that if I rely on God and lean on Him, He gives me the strength.
Can we give Datin Kathleen a big hand? Right? There's so much word of wisdom in that. It's really trusting in God that He has prepared the pathway for you and sending the people. You just got to be able to notice them. I want to jump straight over to the high energy Adele, right? Knowing you, Adele, you are full of energy. Every time I meet you, you are just, "Hi, Esther," right? I know I'm a high I person. That's you. And people know you as the owner of Seven Vault, this powerful superwoman who handles it all, run a marketing company, and you're on social media, and you are loud. And you became a mom a couple of years ago. What was the hardest part about motherhood?
I had to debunk a lot of belief about motherhood when I became one.
Why?
Yeah,
Why was
because
that?
I didn't have a mother role model. I grew up not having most of what kids would have with a mom. I remember when I was 13 years old, when I first got my period, no one was there to help me, and I felt so ashamed. So that is one per se. So when I became a mother, I told myself, I want to be the one who changed from this generation forward. But I don't know how. And then I went through this whole thing of guilt, because I had this inner tug of war that I just wouldn't give up what I do. And I thought social media taught us that, your kids are in your formative years. You're a business owner, Adele. Can't you just take a break and be a mother? But I don't want, because I want to build my business. So I had a lot of guilt with my first son. But when I gave birth to my second daughter, I had this whole journey with God. And I think God just really comforted me and reminded me that it's His children. It's not mine. I'm just the steward. And whatever my son Kai Kai, my daughter Sing Sing, whatever God wants them to do and be, it's already there. So I think the hardest part was debunking that and allowing myself to let go of control, just because I thought I want to be the person that make the change from this generation forward. But no, God knows what He's doing.
You literally had to reinvent motherhood because what you saw growing up wasn't a perfect picture, right? How did that affect you growing up?
It affected me everything. I didn't know what was vulnerability. I didn't know what was strength from a female perspective, not what the world told you.
Mm-hmm.
So I made my own image of what strong looks like. I had this image in my head of what should a woman be like. So I had to reinvent literally how. And growing up, I didn't have a lot of confidence in terms of, I have confidence in certain things, like probably the way I speak, the way I make friends. But I just had this lack of confidence and fear even that I would not be a good mom. Yeah. So I had to battle with that a lot when I have my own kid. But in my heart, I always knew that I want my own kids. Like,
Why? Why did you want your own kids?
I want to have that family that I never had. I want to be that person that built that, I wouldn't say perfect, but that loving family in God's image that I grew up
So
never
this is a
had
side
that.
of Adele we never see, right? And I know you because you share with me a lot. No, in those moments where you are not confident that you could be that mom, how did God come through for you?
I pray, yeah. I think there are just so many things, especially when it comes to relationship with one another, you cannot comprehend using your mind and your personal strength. So I have to lean on to God and say, teach me how to be a mother. Teach me what do you want me to impart to your children. And it's not easy. I'm still learning, still doing. My kids are very young. But I feel like since I have no guidebook anyway, so might as well follow his way. His way at least won't salah. I use my own way.
Yeah, yeah.
God knows what happened.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Adele. Can we give Adele a big hand? Right. I'm just getting warmed up right now, right? So, Kaylin, I met you this week. We had a call, and your story is just amazing. I just really wanted to invite you to share that God-defining moment in your life. I know you really feel led to share this story, so I really just want to go straight into it.
Yes. So this is a proof that a lot of tears are going to come. But
We have a whole box.
so I actually reflected, and this morning as I did my daily devotion, I felt that because it's Mother's Day, the story will be very, very closely linked to my motherhood journey. And I have two defining moments. So the first was when I went through a health scare when my son was only 4 months old. It was right before the pandemic. And, as a young family, as a new mom, you always think your life has just started. But then suddenly, every night for 1 week, I had thoughts in my head that I have big C, the C that nobody wants, yeah? And I thought that I was only 31, and I felt fine. My health has always been a clean bill of health. How could that be, right? The only way to find out is to go for a proper medical checkup. And that's what I did. My husband was in Indonesia, and I went alone. I remember going in, and suddenly as they scanned my ovaries, they found a 4 times 8 centimeter cyst on my left ovary, like a can of Coke, And for it to grow to that size in 4 months shocked me. The second shocker was that my blood markers came back. My CA199, which is a marker for big C, a normal person would be below 60. Mine was 600. Thankfully, in that moment, when I got my blood test, my husband was with me and we were both in tears. What could this mean? I went to see my gynae, and she said in all her years of being a gynae, I was the first patient to ever tell her what I had because I had no symptoms. My entire birth was natural. There was nothing that indicated anything was wrong with me. So had my mind not told me, that's why I'm also a mindfulness coach, because I realized there's this really strong connection with our bodies and minds that if we listen closely, we would know. So when I went in for surgery, that's what the gynae told me. She said, I don't know what it is. The only way is to go in for surgery, take it out, send it to the lab. That's the only way we can determine whether it's benign or not. And so the first defining moment was when I was lying naked on the hospital bed waiting to go in for surgery. They say naked you come into this world and naked you will depart. And in that moment, I felt that naked I was departing. And so I reflected on my life. And I asked God, I said, God, I'm 31. What have I done in this lifetime? If this was my moment to leave, have I contributed anything beyond just doing business, beyond just earning money? What have I done for others? And I felt like, wow, my life would have been a waste. So in that moment, I prayed to God. I said to him, I said, God, you know, if I were to come out of this healthy, I promise you 2 things. Number 1, I will be a very hands-on mother because nobody can replace a mother's love. And number 2, I promise you from here on, my life is yours. I will not do what I want selfishly anymore, but I will let you lead me. Wherever you call me, whatever you want me to do to serve others, that is what I will do. And God granted me a miracle. The surgery turned out successful. The cyst was benign. And shortly after that was the pandemic. So I didn't go back to the hospital for a while. But this leads me to the second defining moment. Within 6 months, my mind told me again, go back to check. Again, no symptoms. When I went back, the cyst grew back to the exact same size in the exact same place, and my blood markers were elevated again. I was in despair. I did what the doctors told me, and now it's back. What does this mean? And in that moment, even though I felt despair, I don't know why there was a sense of peace. And so we decided to try alternative healing because we thought that it's benign. Let's wait and see. Fast forward 2 years on, the cyst grew so big, I suddenly had compression on my bladder, and the doctor told me that I had to go for emergency surgery to remove my entire left ovary. And I don't know about any of you, right? But I think as a woman or a man, if you were to remove a part of your organs, it feels like you lose a part of your womanhood or your manhood, right? For a woman, losing a part of our ovary is like, wow, this is the part that makes me a woman, the most basic, fundamental identity, right? That you're a boy or a girl, right? And so the Lord gave me a vision. He showed me this vision. I don't know how many of you have seen it before, of this little girl holding a teddy bear. And Jesus had a bigger teddy bear behind his back. And this little girl was clinging on to the teddy bear. And Jesus was like, just trust me, give it to me, right? And the little girl said, but I love it so much. And that was me. I said, I love myself, I love my ovary, I don't want to give this up. I don't want to have to go through this surgery and give up a part of me. But Jesus said, just trust me. The story goes on. He gave me a lot of signs. He gave me many miracles after that. But in short, when I went in for surgery, before I went in for surgery, God gave me a vision. 2 years before my daughter was born, the Lord gave me a vision of me carrying a baby girl. And He even showed me her name. And it was a name that I never heard of, a name I didn't know the meaning, and I didn't understand what it meant. I woke up in the middle of the night, I think it was 3 or 4 a.m., and I searched her name, and her name means blessed. But I never told anyone this because it could just be my own wanting. It could be a dream, right? So I went in for surgery, I surrendered to God, and I told God that, maybe there's a purpose for this. Maybe after I go through this, I have to share this story so all women go for their health test. Whether or not you feel that you have something wrong with you, whether you think you're young, you're perfectly healthy, go and check, right? Because you really never know. So that was what I thought He wanted me to do. But fast forward exactly 1 year. So 22nd of December, 2022 was my surgery. 10 months in, I went in for a checkup just to make sure everything was okay. The gynae said, okay, you look like you're recovering. So she said, you can try, but come on. Everyone knows left ovary is gone, right? Like, do you think that you can conceive so easily? I had actually let go of all my thoughts of ever having another child. And I already said to God, thank you that you gave me one healthy child. I'm already grateful, right? So I never thought I would become a mother again. But God is so literal and so loud. 22nd of December 2023 was the date of my missed period. I was pregnant. But I still couldn't tell my husband because if it was a boy, then the vision was not true. 22nd of February, again the number 22, I found out that she was a girl. Yeah. And her name is Edith, and she's there. Yeah.
Can we give little Eden a big, big hand? That's such an encouraging story. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. And as you have heard, every one of them, maybe including us individually, we feel some form of inadequacy, isn't it? In whatever ways. It could be we're not good enough, we're fearful, like we are nobody, I can't do this, who am I? We're searching, and when you are more aware of yourself, you realize there's something lacking inside of us. And you hear their stories of how they overcome it. And Datin, Kathleen, I wanted to ask, for you, you have clearly said yes to many, many things. How do you know when it's a no?
It's difficult. I suppose if it is not core to what I do, if it is not ministry, then it's easy. Then I just, that's not for me. But when it is, and it's something I care about, it is very, very hard. And at that point, I suppose, again, I depend on the counsel of my family. They normally say, no, Mom, just say no.
Today's topic is about being known. And, there are a lot of defining moments in our life, in our journey, in our faith. The question that a lot of people sometimes ask themselves is, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? God, what's my purpose in this world? Like, what is it for me? So how did you discover that? And what is your definition of it? Maybe we'll start with Adele.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, they say your past don't define you, but your past is actually a marker of where you're going to the future. So for me, I know that my childhood does not define who I am going to be, but my childhood is a marker of who I can be for whom in the world. So my journey of knowing that I'm loved by God and seen by God is that I knew that everything that happened to me, He has always been there. God has always been there. And the stories are there. At that moment, it was very painful. It was very doubtful. It was very dark. You don't understand, but God has a purpose. And the moment I allow myself to surrender, that is where I know that I am known, seen by God. Yeah.
Thanks. How about you, Jamie?
I always tell myself, like, if I'm not loved by God, I won't be here. Like, here, right now, the things I have now is what God gave me, and He's still giving me. He knows what I am. I used to ask myself, like, why am I here? I'm always so lost, and I don't know what I'm built for. And I remember there's one pastor, she told me that you won't know, like, the shape you're built into. Like, only God knows. And you just have to be at the position and do it as your best. So I think that helps me all the while. Yeah.
Thank you. How about you, Kellen?
Yes, so there's a Bible verse in Jeremiah that says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. And I mean, I knew this verse, but I never really understood it. I struggled a lot with my self-identity because before I became a women's coach, a health coach, I was actually in my family business. For 10 years, I was running the family F&B chain. And I always felt that I had to prove myself, prove my worth. My father is here, he started a business. So I always felt that I was not good enough. And I always ask God, what else do I need to do, to feel that I'm enough? It was not until I surrendered to Him and that I had the vision of my daughter, right? For Him to give me her name, wow, that made me realize that God really knows us by name. If He can give me her name, what more the rest of us, right? Each and every one of us has been called by name. We might think it's our parents who calls us by name, but actually it's God who put the name into our parents, right? So that was a real awakening for me. And to understand that my self-worth and my identity does not depend on what I do or what I achieve or how good I look on the outside, but it all depends on how God sees me. Be someone in the eyes of God instead of someone in the eyes of men. Finally, I understood that because He's our ultimate Father. Then that to me was how I felt known.
Thanks, Kathleen. And Datin, Kathleen, what would you say to us, to everybody here? You know, like what can we know about this God, right? Like how can we be known, be seen, and be used by God?
I grew up in a Catholic family. My mother was a first generation Catholic. And so faith was strong
Yep.
in our family. So I can never think of a time in my life where I didn't feel, there was God with me. But, we all feel inadequate. There was a time in my life after my children, the older three children were baptized, and I said to God, God, just use me. What do you want me to do? What is your purpose in my life? And to serve you, not my other career. And I just couldn't find an answer. And I just remember I was in a church in Paris and just sitting in the pews and just praying, God, just show me what you want me to do. And I say this often, it's a dangerous prayer to ask God to show you, right? Because when he does, it's...
And you might not be ready when he does.
It's full on. And so then someone introduces to Alpha soon after that. And then, when we got involved in Alpha and everything. But it really was, I think, another defining moment in my life was when we were having this facilitator training for the Alpha Day Away. And the Alpha Day Away is when we go away for a weekend and we discuss the ministry of the Holy Spirit. And so it was training, and they said to me, to all of us, let's pray for the Holy Spirit to come. And I said to the facilitator, I said, I've heard about this, but I'm very doubtful. I'm really not sure I want to be involved in this at all. Anyway, so they smiled at me and they said, never mind, just pray, it's okay. And we prayed for this other woman. And as we were praying, I just knew the power of God was just going to come upon her. And I felt this electric shock through my arm. And I just knew when it landed on her, that shock, she was going to fall. And she did. And I was shocked. And then they said, okay, we're going to pray for you now. And I said, I am not going to fall. And so I stood there, I kind of stood really firm. And they prayed for me, and I was just overcome. And I fell. And I was just overwhelmed, I think, with the Holy Spirit. And that was really God telling me, don't doubt me. When I'm here with you and my presence is here and you follow me. So, I think that was really, truly, I think the start of what I've been doing with Alpha and